Okay, so I need y'all to do some quick math with me for a second because there's a foundation stick right now sitting in Sephora that costs $68 for 0.31 ounces of product. And once you actually break that down per ounce, it comes out to over $200 an ounce for a foundation. And I genuinely had to sit with that number for a minute before I even started writing this script. Here's the thing though, this isn't some random no-name brand trying to pull a fast one on people who don't know any better. This is Westman Atelier, a legitimately beloved celebrity makeup artist-founded brand that people rave about constantly. Glowing reviews everywhere you look, so it's not like anyone's being tricked exactly. It's more like everyone's just quietly agreed not to talk about the actual math behind what they're buying. So today we're breaking down the Vital Skin Foundation stick. The real price, the real story behind the company, the funding, the ownership, and whether this thing genuinely earns that price tag or if it's riding almost entirely on reputation and a really good marketing team. Let's get into it. The hype. Picture this. You've scrolled past this stick 100 times on your feed, always described the same way. Your skin but better, effortless, second skin, the kind of foundation that doesn't look like foundation at all, and it comes from Gucci Westman, a genuinely legendary makeup artist who spent years as artistic director at both Revlon and Lancôme before ever launching her own brand. She co-founded Westman Atelier in 2018 alongside her husband David Neville, who's also the co-founder of the fashion label Rag & Bone. So this wasn't some influencer slapping their name on a white label product they didn't help design. This was two people with real industry experience building something from the ground up together over years of actual formulation work. And it worked, genuinely worked. The brand reportedly hit close to $100 million in retail sales back in 2023, and this exact foundation stick has been described as selling 1 unit every single minute at its peak, which is a genuinely wild number for a product sitting at this price point. Most brands would kill for that kind of repeat customer loyalty. The brand's whole identity is also built around this idea of clean luxury, meaning ingredients people can feel good about alongside genuinely high performance. And Westman has talked openly about wanting to merge skincare actives directly into the makeup itself: squalane, camellia seed oil, antioxidant plant compounds, the kind of ingredient list that reads more like a serum than a foundation stick. So the hype isn't manufactured out of nothing. That's important to say up front. This brand earned its following through actual product performance and a founder with real credibility, but hype and value are two completely different conversations, and that's exactly where this whole thing starts getting interesting. The math. All right, let's actually break this down because this is the part nobody puts in their glowing 5-star review. The Vital Skin Foundation stick costs $68 for 0.31 ounces of product, and when you convert that to a standard ounce for comparison purposes, you're looking at roughly $219 per ounce, which is a genuinely staggering number once you actually see it written out like that. For comparison, a standard bottle of prestige liquid foundation, something like a 1-ounce bottle running you $50 or $60, is already considered pricey by most everyday shoppers, but you're getting an entire full ounce for that money, not a third of one. So the per-use math looks completely different once you actually sit down and calculate it properly. Now, sticks are naturally more concentrated than liquid foundation. That part's genuinely fair to point out. You do use less product per application overall since it's more pigmented and goes further with each swipe. But even accounting for that difference, the price per use still lands noticeably higher than most comparable prestige sticks currently on the market right now. And here's a detail that a lot of reviewers have specifically flagged. The shade range currently sits around 13 to 20 shades depending on the exact product line, which is genuinely limited for a brand sitting at this price point, especially compared to newer luxury lines launching with 40 or 50 shades as basically the industry standard at this point. One long-term reviewer who tracks beauty products professionally, testing hundreds of items over several years, actually put it pretty simply after retesting the stick a second time, saying she wouldn't personally pay $70 for it again, even though she genuinely liked how it applied to her skin. And that's honestly the most balanced, honest take you'll find on this thing anywhere online. It works, but the price still nags at people who've actually used it long term. The ownership story. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, though, because Westman Atelier has stayed remarkably independent for a brand this hyped up online. They actually self-funded the company entirely for the first couple of years after launch, deliberately turning down licensing deals that would have let them cash out much faster, specifically so they could control the formula quality and the brand's overall direction without outside investor pressure pushing them to cut corners. Eventually, they did take on some outside investment, $22 million back in 2022 from firms called Prelude Growth Partners and G9 Ventures, and then another $15 million more recently from Prelude, again alongside a firm called Imaginary Ventures. So there's real institutional money involved in the company now, but notably, no giant beauty conglomerate like L'Oreal or Estée Lauder has swallowed the brand whole the way they have with so many other names we've covered on this channel before. And here's the twist that makes this even more interesting. Industry reporting has actually indicated that Westman Atelier explored a full sale process at one point, with insiders pegging it as one of the beauty brands most expected to land a major acquisition deal. Before that process reportedly went quiet, according to reporting from outlets covering the beauty industry, meaning the door to getting bought by one of the big players is still very much open. It just hasn't happened yet as of right now. So, unlike a lot of brands where the price tag is directly funding some massive parent company's global marketing budget and shareholder returns, here, you're actually funding a smaller, founder-led operation that's genuinely reinvesting in formula development and ingredient sourcing, which does soften the scam framing a little bit, honestly, even if the per-ounce math still feels genuinely rough when you actually run the numbers. The alternative. Okay, so here's the part where we actually put this to the test against something cheaper, because Merit Beauty makes a foundation stick called the Minimalist Perfecting Complexion Stick, and it runs around $38, which is still not exactly cheap by any normal standard, but it's a full $30 less than the Westman Atelier version sitting right next to it. Merit built its entire brand identity around exactly this kind of comparison, actually. Minimal ingredients, minimal packaging, minimal fuss, marketing itself specifically as the antidote to overhyped, overpriced beauty. And the minimalist stick delivers a genuinely similar buildable skin-like finish without quite the same ultra-premium price tag attached to it. Testing both side by side over a full day of wear, the actual coverage and blendability felt remarkably close between the two. Westman Atelier's formula did feel slightly more luxurious going on initially, a touch more glide right out of the tube, but in terms of how it actually looked on skin after several hours of full wear, most people genuinely struggled to tell which face was wearing the $68 stick and which one had the $38 version applied. That's a $30 gap for a difference that's honestly pretty subtle once it's actually sitting on your face and not just swatched on the back of your hand under bright studio lighting, where every tiny variation gets exaggerated. Real quick before we wrap this up, if you're into this kind of breakdown, actually running the math on whether the hype matches the price tag instead of just trusting the packaging, this is what we do here every single day. So subscribing just means you catch the next one, no pressure. Okay, let's bring this home. The verdict. So here's where I actually land on this, y'all. Westman Atelier isn't a scam in the sense that they're lying about ingredients or ripping people off with some fake, poorly made product. The formula genuinely performs well by most accounts, and the company behind it has stayed refreshingly independent compared to a lot of brands we've covered on this channel. But when you actually run the math, $219 per ounce for a limited shade range still sitting well below industry standard, going up against a $38 alternative that most people genuinely can't visually tell apart from it after a full day of real-world wear, the biggest scam in beauty framing starts feeling a lot less like clickbait and more like an honest, fair description of what's actually happening here. The real scam, if there even is one, isn't the company lying to you directly. It's the industry-wide agreement that nobody's really supposed to do this math out loud in public. Because once you convert everything to price per ounce, and put it right next to a genuinely comparable alternative, the story gets a lot less glamorous than the marketing wants you to believe walking into the store. All right, let's run it back real quick. The hype is real. Gucci Westman's got the actual credentials, and the brand hit nearly $100 million in sales through genuine word of mouth. The math is rough, though. $68 for 0.31 ounces works out past $200 an ounce once you actually calculate it. The ownership story is genuinely more independent than most luxury brands, self-funded for years before taking any outside investment at all. And the alternative, Merit's $38 stick, held its own in a real side-by-side comparison against it. Tell me in the comments, have you actually tried this foundation stick yourself? And be honest, do you think it's genuinely worth the price? Or were you paying for the name as much as the formula itself? Because I read every single comment down there, so don't be shy about it. If this was useful, go ahead and subscribe, because tomorrow we're doing this exact same price per ounce breakdown on 5 more viral luxury products, and a couple of those numbers are honestly even more shocking than this one turned out to be. Thanks for watching Dupe Audit. Catch y'all in the next video.